Seeing all this gave me a strong feeling that I was making a huge mistake. The entire town was under an invisible, terrifying shadow. And I was alone, the only one who had to solve this problem. I told people about it so many times, but no one believed me. Everyone would laugh and tell me that I overthink things, that my mind makes up weird stories. But it wasn't true. The fear inside me told me that this wasn't normal. It was much deeper and more dangerous than that. This was all back in 2005. The problem started when I was sleeping in my bed one night. It was 2:30 a.m. Everything was completely silent. Suddenly, my phone's loud ringtone went off. I opened my eyes and looked at the clock, then at the phone screen. It was an unknown number. I thought it was a wrong number and hung up. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but my heart was racing. A few minutes later, the call came again. This time, I picked up and said, "Hello?" There was no answer. Only the sound of breathing, like someone was standing right in front of me, waiting to talk. The sound was cold and scary. The phone started shaking in my hand and I immediately hung up. I didn't get a minute of sleep that night. The next day, I told my best friend John about it. John was a practical and cheerful guy. He listened to me and then started making fun of me. "Dude, you worry too much," he said with a loud laugh. "It's probably just some kid messing with you." I tried to ignore what he said, but that fear had settled in my heart like a stone. That night, I was back in bed, but I wasn't sleeping. I was awake, restlessly tossing and turning. At 3:45 a.m., another call came to my phone. I didn't look at the number again, but I was sure it was the same one. A shiver went through my whole body. I didn't pick up the phone. Instead, I silenced it. I put it on the side table and closed my eyes. Then, I got a text message. I picked up the phone and saw, "I'm watching you." My hands started shaking. My whole body was drenched in sweat. I quickly blocked the number on my phone and thought about calling the police. But then I thought, what proof do I have? Just one text message and 2 calls? They would think I was crazy again. I didn't want to bother my friends or myself again, and I kept quiet, thinking maybe all this would just go away on its own. But the calls and text messages went on for several days, an endless stream of them, every night at the same time from the same number. One day, I called my friend John over to my house again. "I think my phone has been hacked," I said. "I'm getting calls and messages from an unknown number." I told him more. John first made a joke about it, but when I showed him the texts, he fell silent. His face went pale. His laughter was gone. He understood that this wasn't a joke. The next day, the same thing happened to another one of our friends, Jacob. He also started getting calls from the same unknown number. He picked up too, and all he heard was silence. He was scared too. He came to me and we both decided we had to go to the police now. When we went to the police, we met with an experienced and serious detective, Detective Martin. He listened to us very seriously. "This kind of harassment with phone calls and text messages is a serious crime," he said, looking at us. "And I assure you, I will solve this problem." He asked us to sign some papers so he could look at our phone records. After that, more people in our town started becoming victims. Every day, a new person was coming to the police station. Everyone was getting calls from the same number. Detective Martin contacted every affected person and got copies of their phone records and messages. It was a terrifying situation, like some invisible hunter was hunting the entire town. To solve this problem, the police worked with the telecommunications company to trace the number. With the help of modern technology, they found the times and locations of the calls. Their investigation revealed that this number was being used in a prepaid phone, which was turned off after every call. This wasn't a normal criminal. This was a clever and intelligent person. The police found the last location of the phone, which was near an old, abandoned market at the very end of our town. Detective Martin sent a team there, and they saw a person dressed in black. He had more than one phone and many SIM cards. When the police arrested him, he was a former security guard named Tim. When the police questioned him, he revealed that he suffered from psychological issues. He admitted that he was harassing people because he considered himself a spy. He would be happy to see that people were getting scared by his calls and messages. He also told us he was doing all this to test the weaknesses of our town's police. He felt very important because he was interfering in people's lives. The police sent him for a mental health evaluation and also charged him. After that, peace returned to our town. When I remember this whole incident, I still get scared. I know he was a normal person, but he had terrified our entire town. He made us realize how fragile our peace is.
If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Also, let me know in the comments how you found the video. Now, let's move on to the next story.
My name is Nicole, and I still remember the winter of 1995, back when I lived in a small, forgotten town called Cedarville. Life there was so slow, peaceful, and simple. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other by name, and people would forget to lock their doors at night because there was no such thing as danger. We all trusted each other completely. But then everything changed, all because of a mysterious thing that destroyed a century's worth of trust between our townspeople. It all started with a small, unusual incident. It was a hazy afternoon in October, and I was home alone, reading my favorite book, To Kill a Mockingbird. The room was completely silent. Suddenly, I had a strange feeling. I felt like someone was watching me. A shiver went down my spine. I slowly looked up and glanced around the room. Outside the window, the street was empty. I went back to my book, but the feeling didn't go away. I heard a slight sound. My heart started to beat faster. I immediately closed my book and rushed to the window. As I got closer, I felt like someone was pressed against the side of the house and had suddenly run off fast. I looked outside the window right away, but no one was there. The street was empty, and only a couple of dry leaves were blowing in the wind down the road. The next day, I went to visit my friend Catherine, who lived 2 streets away from me. When I got to her house, she looked very worried and scared. Her eyes showed a lack of sleep, and her face was anxious. "Nicole," she almost whispered, "I think someone is spying on me." Her voice was full of fear. I tried to calm her down and asked her what happened. She told me that whenever she went outside, she felt like someone was following her. "It's not just a feeling, Nicole. I'm sure of it." She lowered her head and added, "I also see some shadows in my backyard at night, but when I look, there's nothing there." Her words made the fear in my heart grow even more. As the days passed, similar incidents started happening in town. Every other person in our town was experiencing the same fear. One of my neighbors, Mr. Allen, a retired teacher who never complained about anything, talked to me one day. "Nicole, I think someone is secretly watching me in my house." He lowered his voice even more. "It's a problem that's destroying our peace and our privacy. I feel like someone knows a secret of mine and wants to ruin my reputation." His words made me very worried. Meanwhile, one night, as I was cooking dinner in the kitchen, my eyes landed on the kitchen window. It was completely dark outside. Suddenly, I saw a reflection in the window glass. Someone was watching me from outside. The spoon fell from my hand. I slightly turned my head and looked straight at the person. As soon as my eyes met the person's, he immediately hid his head. I rushed outside. I looked down the street, but no one was there. For even a moment, I couldn't believe it was just my imagination. I could feel my heart beating so fast that I thought it would explode. My friend Catherine and I decided we had to figure all this out. We talked to the people in our town who were all living in the same fear. We asked them to come to the police station with us. Some people agreed, and we all went to see Detective Johnson at the police station. Detective Johnson was an experienced and serious police officer. We told him the whole problem. Detective Johnson reassured us and said, "I'm taking this problem seriously. Don't worry, I'll solve it." He gave us his word. The police created a special group to help people and decided they would listen to every single person's complaint. They investigated every house that had a complaint. The police investigation revealed something that surprised us all. The police said there were some strange, small marks on some people's doors, on some walls, and in some people's yards. The marks were very small and not clear. No one understood what these marks were. They weren't meant to harm anyone, but they were somehow unsettling people. One night, I felt that fear again. It was 2 a.m. I was sleeping when I again felt like someone was watching me. I immediately opened my eyes and looked toward my window. This time, my eyes widened in shock. I saw 2 people standing there in black clothes. They were making some marks. I immediately called Detective Johnson, and he got there right away. By the time Detective Johnson got there, the people had already run away. The detective picked up a strange thing that the people had dropped. It was a very unusual device. It was a device they used to listen to the sounds inside our houses. It was completely hidden, like a small camera. Seeing this, our fear turned into a real, tangible reality. After that day, the police increased their patrols all over town to catch this group. Finally, the police caught the group in a vacant building in town. It was a secret group called the Voyeurs, and its job was to invade people's personal lives, destroy their privacy, and find out their secrets. When the police revealed the name of the group's leader, we were all shocked. It was formed by a big businessman in town, Mr. Thomas, who considered himself very powerful. He thought that by knowing people's secrets, he could control them. The police arrested the entire group. Mr. Thomas admitted that he was the one harassing everyone. We never found out why he chose our town. After that, peace returned to our town again. When I remember this whole incident, I still get scared. I know it was just a normal person, but he had disturbed our entire town. He had destroyed our most valuable asset, trust. After that day, Cedarville was never the same peaceful, quiet town again.
My name is Connor Elliott. This story is from the time I went to my grandmother's house in a small town in Ohio called Mapleford,
with my sister Eva. We are both college students in Cleveland, and my grandmother's health had suddenly deteriorated, which is why we went to stay with her. But what happened there still bothers me at night, and an unknown fear is sitting inside me. Mapleford is a small town with a population of barely 3,000, and everyone knows each other well. The smell of pine trees and damp soil was always in the air. Our grandmother's house was at the very edge of the town, an old bungalow made of wood with crooked windows. Behind it was a vast empty field, and after that, a dense forest began. In front of the house was a large lawn with old chairs, and the gusts of wind were blowing away the dry leaves on them. Our first day went well. After a long journey from Cleveland, we were tired, but seeing our grandmother gave us peace. We spent time with her, asked about her well-being, and in the evening we looked at old photo albums in which Eva was laughing at childhood pictures, and there was a gleam in our grandmother's eyes. But from the second day, a strange and unpleasant series of events began, which made this peaceful place a terrifying one for us. The next day, at 3 p.m., when we went for lunch at the town's only diner, the Old Oak, a man was sitting at the counter. He was a tall man, about 60 years old, with wrinkles and bitterness on his face. He looked up at us, and his gaze stopped for a moment. He pulled up his chair and asked, "You people are Elliot's granddaughters, right?" His tone was not soft. His name was Harlan, and he told us that he was our grandmother's neighbor. He asked about our grandmother's health, but there was a bitterness and hatred in his words, as if he was angry to see us there. Eva lightened the conversation by laughing. "Yes, we are her granddaughters." Harlan just nodded his head, and we went back. Even the light of the diner and the aroma of the food felt terrifying in his presence. The next day, at 10:15 a.m., we went to the pharmacy to get medicine for our grandmother. When we entered, we saw that Harlan was there too, standing in a corner. There was a box in his hands, and he was looking with empty eyes. When he saw us, a strange smile came on his face, which did not look real. There was a gleam in his eyes that was very terrifying. The owner of the pharmacy, Randy, told us that Harlan has been living here for many years. He later told us that many years ago, there was a dispute over a piece of land between our grandfather and Harlan is still angry about it today. Randy also told us that Harlan often behaves strangely with new people, especially if they're related to our grandmother's family. At 5:30 p.m., when we were sitting on the wooden boards in the backyard of our grandmother's house, we heard the sounds of metal scratching from the field. This sound was like someone dragging an iron rod on the ground. I thought it would be an animal, but Eva saw a shadow of someone who hid behind the tall grass for a moment. We both looked at each other and went inside. When our grandmother saw us worried, she asked, "What happened?" We told her about the sounds outside. Our grandmother sighed and said that Harlan sometimes comes near her field and does strange things, as if he wants to prove something. That night, our grandmother also told us that Harlan had once threatened to harm our grandfather's house, and that matter had ended after that, but now it has started again. The next day, at 1:45 p.m., we went to the town's small park, which was near an old spring. Harlan was sitting on a bench there and started walking toward us after seeing us. There was a fast pace in his steps that was showing his anger. "You people are very smart like your grandmother, aren't you?" There was anger and bitterness in his voice. I told him that we had only come to meet our grandmother, but he said, "Your grandfather did very wrong to us. You people shouldn't be here." When Eva tried to take me away from there, Harlan stood in front of us and threatened, "I will keep an eye on you people." His eyes had become small, and his face was looking terrifying. At 9 p.m., we were in the house when there was a loud noise from outside. When we peeked from the window, we saw that the trash can outside our house was overturned, and all the garbage was spread outside. Eva said angrily, "I'm calling the police." But our grandmother stopped her and told her that the local police know Harlan well, and they won't do anything. We checked the doors and windows, but I couldn't sleep all night. Every little sound outside was also scaring me. The next day, at 8:30 a.m., when we were making breakfast for our grandmother, we saw smoke rising from the backyard. Eve and I ran out to see that a small fire was burning in the field. We immediately put out the fire by pouring water. There was an old cigarette box lying on the ground, which was similar to Harlan's box. We were sure that this was not a coincidence, and Harlan was scaring us. We called the police, but the officer only wrote a report and said that he would talk to Harlan. At 2 p.m., Randy told us that Harlan's enmity with our grandfather is very old. Harlan believes that our grandfather had taken away his land, and he still wants to take revenge for it today. At 6 p.m., when we returned home, there was an old iron part lying in the lawn, which was similar to Harlan's workshop. Our grandmother told us that he has left such things many times to bother us. The next day, at 7:15 a.m., we decided to go back to Cleveland. When we were packing our luggage, Harlan was standing in the street in front of our house. He waved his hand after seeing us and said, "Good, you're leaving." His smile scared me. We immediately sat in the car and left. While leaving, I saw in the mirror that Harlan was still watching us go. After coming back to Cleveland, we reported it to the local police, but we didn't have much hope. Our grandmother later told us that Harlan is still in Mapleford and people are afraid of him. This incident is a few months old, but every time I pass through a small town, I remember Harlan's face, and his smile scares me. This goes way back to when I lived in a small, quiet town called Riverville. Life there was super simple, like something out of an old movie. Everybody knew everybody's name, and in the evenings, as soon as the sun went down, the town would just get super quiet. After 9 p.m., you wouldn't even see a bird flying around. But then all that peace suddenly shattered. Something came along and completely ruined our nights, casting a shadow of fear and anxiety over the entire town. It all started back in the cold, long nights of 1992. A weird metallic sound started echoing through our town in the dark. It sounded exactly like someone dragging a heavy iron bar across rocky ground. It was harsh, cold, and terrifying. The sound came every single night, right on time, like a clock alarm. It would start around 11 p.m. and last until 2 a.m. When it started, I'd always pull back the curtain on my window just a little and peek outside. The street would be completely dark, and it was impossible to tell where the sound was coming from. It felt like it was coming from every single street all at once. At first, we all thought it was a prank. My buddy Doug was having coffee one chilly evening, and he said, "Maybe it's just some mischievous kid who can't wait for Halloween and wants to scare people." We all laughed, but as the days went by and the sound kept coming every night, the laughter turned into anxiety. People started getting dark circles under their eyes. Kids would wake up in the middle of the night crying, and the whole town was just living under this cloud of unseen fear. I decided to talk to my neighbor, Frank. Frank was a retired mechanic with gray hair and deep wrinkles on his face that showed his wisdom. He always had a logical, simple explanation for everything. I was sitting on his porch and we were drinking coffee when I brought up the sound. He took a sip of his coffee and said, "A sound like that could come from an old generator or some broken machinery. Don't worry, it's not a ghost or anything." His words made me feel a little better, but the problem was that the sound's location changed every night. One night it would come from near the church, and the next night it would be near the lake. It couldn't be a machine. One day, Frank, another friend of ours named Mike, and I decided to do something big. We decided to follow the sound. It was a brave move, but we were all just so tired of being on edge. We met up in an open field near Frank's house right before 11 p.m. We had our flashlights ready, and our hearts were pounding. As soon as the clock hit 11, that harsh sound started up again. It sounded really close, maybe from a street nearby. We immediately turned on our flashlights and started chasing it. The sound would feel really close, and then it would suddenly seem far away. We went through streets, sidewalks, and parks. After walking for about an hour, we hadn't found anything. We were out of breath and sweating. All of a sudden, the sound completely stopped. We looked around and realized we were far from town, on the edge of the old forest. A deep silence fell over us, and it was even more terrifying than before. We went back, feeling disappointed and helpless. The next night, the sound came back. This time, we tried a new approach. We decided to go in different directions. Frank went north, Mike went west, and I went south. We stayed in touch on our phones. I started walking fast with my flashlight on. Suddenly, I heard Mike's voice on my phone, and he was out of breath. "I saw someone," he said. There was both fear and excitement in his voice. He was wearing dark clothes, and he had something in his hand that he immediately threw on the ground. Frank and I immediately ran toward Mike. We shined our flashlights on the spot where Mike said the person had thrown something. We found a huge iron chain with iron rods tied to it in different places. The chain looked brand new, like it had just come from a factory. Our eyes lit up when we saw it. Now we were sure it was a person, not a ghost or anything supernatural, but a living person. But the question was, why was he doing all this? What was his goal? We immediately decided to go to the town's police station. A tired-looking police officer, Detective Carter, was sitting at his desk drinking coffee. We told him the whole story and put the chain down in front of him. He looked at the chain carefully and then looked at us as if he couldn't believe it. He asked, "Are you sure this is all connected to that sound?" We nodded. "We're absolutely sure, sir." The detective reassured us and said he would help. After that, the detective talked to the people in our town, and everyone told the same story. Scared kids, lack of sleep, and anxiety. Everyone was saying the same thing. The detective also found it all very strange. He called a meeting with all of us and decided we'd work together. "A problem like this," he said, "can only be solved by the people of the town." He asked some of the town's younger, braver guys to patrol the streets at night to catch this guy. We all did it happily so that this problem could be solved once and for all. Every night, we'd split into small teams and quietly patrol the streets. Finally, one night, we succeeded. Our old neighbor, Mr. Henry, who was a light sleeper, saw a man doing something in one of our town's narrow alleys. He was hitting weird metallic tools together with his hands to make those horrible sounds. Without any fear, he stopped him and asked, "What are you doing here?" The man was startled, and without saying anything, threw his stuff on the ground and started running. Mr. Henry immediately called the police, and Detective Carter and his team got there right away. They caught the running man and started questioning him. When we all got there, we had another surprise. The man was Steve. the son of the town's famous blacksmith, Ralph. Steve was considered one of the town's best and most peaceful kids. When the police searched his bag, there was another chain in it, and he had collected a lot of old metallic tools in his room. When the detective asked him why he was doing all this, there was a weird look in his eyes. He stammered and said that he wanted to be a musician and that he wanted to bring a new revolution to the world through these strange sounds. He did all this because he thought our town was too quiet and it made him anxious. He went on to say that he wanted people to pay attention to these sounds so his music could be recognized in the world. After hearing all this, we were all in shock. His reasoning and his goal were both bizarre. He had mentally tormented people just so he could become famous. Seeing his insensitivity and selfishness, everyone had the same question